Hi and welcome back to me sa Face of the Internet because I thought I would like to share my first impressions of a short story I just read. It's called The Lottery Ticket by Anton Chekov that he published in 1887. So, reading about the author, his main writing is on the genre of realism, and he wrote a number of known short stories and plays as well. So he's both a short story writer and a playwright. Okay, so if I would sum up my first impression of this short story, I would sum it up in 4 words, which I wrote down here on this paper, and it says bear in bold capital letters. See? Bear. Choose the bear. Okay. So, why did I write that down? Okay, why was that my first reaction and impression of the short story? Okay, for context, the short story revolves around a middle-aged couple who are also from a middle-class background. The husband is named Ivan Dimitrich, and the wife is called Masha. Okay, so Ivan earns around 1,200 rubles a year, because I would assume it's rubles because it was published in 1887, which when I looked up is still under the management of the Romanovs. So it's still a Russian Empire, and they were using rubles for their currency. So anyway, okay. So yeah, it started with him being described as someone who's satisfied with what he has, and basically he's just okay with life, you know. So the scene opens with the wife and the husband after dinner or supper, so around those times, at home. And then the wife was asking the husband, can you go check the newspaper for me because I need to know if I won the lottery. So the husband was like, but isn't your ticket expired? And the wife said, no, I got a new one last Tuesday. So the husband goes, yeah, okay, I'll go check it for you. And then the wife proceeds to tell the husband, okay, so this is my ticket series, and this is the exact number of my ticket. Do you see it anywhere there in the page? So the husband said, oh, I see the series number. But then the wife said, okay, but do you see my ticket number there? So the husband keeps on delaying it, actually reading if it's the wife's actual lottery ticket that was winning at that draw. So he said, no, we have plenty of time to check on that. But what if we win it? What are we gonna do? So, and then he started all this imagination, fantasizing, oh, what am I gonna do with the money that my wife will win from the lottery with the ticket that she bought. Okay. Well, I guess at this point he's validated to imagine what to do with the prize money, because considering the time, and so I'm talking about history and like tradition and culture there. At this time, everything is a shared property between the husband and the wife. So, di pa naman uso this time the prenup and all that. And considering that they are from a middle class family, it could also mean that the wife does unpaid labor most of the time, or mostly. She does work, but she's not paid for it. So it would look like that it is the husband bringing in all the money, because he's the one who has a recognized job, you know. So okay, I get the mindset of the husband at this point, that whatever my wife wins is also my money, because we share everything. So everything is a shared property between us, which is fair, okay, fine. Okay, so, alright, so he goes, I will buy a real property, an estate. No? And then he mentioned two provinces. When I searched these provinces, they're nice places. One is now an administrative center for the region, and then the other is like a well-known vacation spot. No, so the husband was thinking it would be a good investment to do that. So I'm gonna get okay, because all of his imaginations are about him. So in this first, at the start of his imagination, he thought, okay, I'm gonna get this property at this place or maybe that place. And then the wife said, yeah, that sounds nice. Yes, let's go do that. And then the husband continues on imagining that, okay, I'm gonna spend this much for the property, and then this much for furnishings, and then I'm gonna pay all our debts because it's shared between them again, and then he's gonna save the money, okay? So he's gonna save the rest in a bank so that he would earn interest, which is fine, neat, okay? Magandang plano yun. So, and then the wife just says, okay, yes, no. She doesn't really contradict him. There's nothing like that. So I would assume from that the relationship between the husband and the wife is one of harmony, okay? So not much of a conflict. So wala masyadong parang diskusyonan. So the wife goes along with what the husband says. Because looking at what he was saying, I guess it's reasonable naman. So if I'm in the wife's position, I would not also argue because I find the reason with what he's saying. Okay, so going back. So, and then the husband continues to imagine what it's gonna be like once he is there, no? So family friendly pa yung kanyang illusions at this time, okay? He's still thinking about how it's gonna be with the kids, yung anak nila, what he's going to eat. Of course, because he's Russian, there's a bottle of vodka involved, okay? Because he's Russian. It's a stereotype. Di ako nagsulat nun. Si Chekov nagsulat nun. Okay? And then, until the part that tension rises up. Suddenly. Well, not suddenly. It's not sudden. It's like a shift in his inner being, okay? From being this thinking, oh, what's good for my family and what am I going to enjoy with all the sunshines and the rainbows, it became this, right? He suddenly looks at his wife and continues to say that, and I quote, okay, reading from it, he says, I should go abroad. You know, Masha. And at this point, I was like, what? Bro, what the heck is that? I was like, 180 degree switch up. Like, what the heck? From being a family man, now you are, oh, it's just me, you know, ako na lang to, no? Hindi na kayo kasali, hindi ka nakasali. Okay, ticket mo yan, pero hindi ka nakasali. And then, you thought I would like places to go, and when to go. So there's southern France, Italia, India, so on. The wife just says, I should also go, no? I should also go abroad. And then insists again, go look at the number of the ticket. Which at this point I would say, Yeah, bro, just look at the number of the ticket. So we would not be spending all this time thinking of what if and what are we gonna do without knowing if we actually win it or not. Because this man is counting chicks before the eggs are actually hatched. So you only know where would that lead, right? And then if na naman, wait. And then he goes around the room thinking. And then he thought, oh, why would my wife go abroad? What is she gonna do there? Why does she need to do that? Because she wants to. And she can, if she wins the money prize, she can actually do that. Why do you have to think about it? You know? And then he started imagining that his wife is spoiling all his good plans of what to do abroad and all this shenanigans that he's planning. And then he started looking at his wife, like really looking at his wife, like physically looking at the wife, and proceeds to say that she's old, she smells like home cooking, and I should divorce her. Like what? Like literally, like what's wrong with this man? And at the same time, he doesn't see himself as someone who's grown past his prime. He says, he was still young. I'm kidding you not. He's young, fresh, and healthy, and he might well have got married again. Bro, ikaw lang nakakaisip niyan. Like, pag binigyan kita ng salamin right at this moment, or if your wife actually got a big mirror and flashes it into your face, you're gonna see nothing but the crusty, wrinkly old man. Because that's what you are. Okay. And then he goes again to thinking of why would the wife go abroad and the relationships that his wife got. And then he has this very, very, very misogynistic take that if my wife manages the money, she's just gonna give me a few hundred and then she's gonna hide it away. Like everything will be kept away from me. Which, to my opinion right now, that I can read what you are thinking, yeah, she should. Honestly, she doesn't even have to give you like a penny of it, like a cent of it. And she just knows what goes on in your mind. But, samahan ko pa siya to file the divorce, you know. And get a lawyer so you wouldn't get anything from her. So anyway, yeah. And then he goes on to remember about the family of her wife, like the natal family of the wife, how they would be leeching on them, actually on her, once they know about the winning of the lottery. And goes on to say a lot of like expletives about them. And then he also remembered about his own family and then called them reptiles. And at this point, I think he's actually just projecting to these people that that's what they're gonna do, because it is exactly what he is going to do. He's about to do. very shameless, actually. And then he's also repulsed by the face of his wife. Actually, what's written here is that, and his wife's face too struck him as repulsive and hateful. So like, now he's brought back to reality, and he's looking at his wife again, and he's interpreting the expression on the wife's face as repulsive and hateful. And that made him more angry, and he thought malignantly. It is what's written here. Thought malignantly. Okay? Cancer yan, be. He's maligning the wife. That she knows nothing about money, and so she's stingy. If she wanted, she would have given me a few 100 rubles and put the rest away under lock and key. So yeah, again, he's afraid that the money he feels entitled to will be denied from him, which does not actually surprise me at all, but it still disappoints me, because why is it that there are people like this, like particularly men and some women, that they feel entitled to what their partners have, but then think so hatefully of them. Like, make it make sense, diba? If you hate someone this much, what's the point of staying in a relationship with them? Is it because you know that you can't do better than that, or you know that they're useful to you? It's really like that. And then now it's like a turn to what the wife is thinking, but then I'm not in agreement with how she's being portrayed at this part. Tingin ko lang kasi for most of the story, it is written from a third person point of view, but I kind of feel like it's somehow biased to Ivan. So when it is now the point of view of the wife, or within it, when the narrator is now talking about the wife, I still feel like as if it is Ivan who's talking, because this persona is looking at the wife from the eyes of Ivan, or the persona seeing the wife, Masha from the eyes of Ivan. It says here, she glanced at him too, and also with hatred and anger. She had her own daydreams. Of course, no? Her own plans. Yeah, she's entitled to that. Her own reflections. Because she's her own person, diba? She understood perfectly well what her husband's dreams were, of course. Again, this man has been with her for, imagine, decades, so she would know. She knew who would be the first to grab her winnings. And exactly, that is the exact problem here. Because she's living with someone who acts this way, thinks this way. And she knows very well that this man, given a chance, would possibly murder her and steal what's rightfully hers. And then there's a quote here of what is supposedly being expressed by her eyes. It says that it's very nice making daydreams at other people's expense, and no, don't you dare. Which, I get it, okay? I get you, girl, from this point, okay? I get you. You know the man that you're living with, right? So, yeah. In the end, they didn't win the lotto at this time. It's not their number, okay? It's their series, but it's not their lottery ticket that was caught. And then realization hit the husband and quote unquote the wife. Because again, I do not share the same impression that the wife has also turned to be this greedy, selfish human being who's now showing her true colors that money is involved. I'm more akin to the idea that the wife has come to a realization that if you give my husband the chance to get this much, he would certainly throw away decades of our marriage for his own selfish gain. That's how I see it, okay? It's not that she's transforming into this monstrous being, but it's that she has come to a point to actually accept that her husband actually got these tendencies, and she could not deny it anymore, you know. So yeah, so it's a character growth, but it's a character growth in the worst way. And I feel for women in Masha's condition and her circumstances, actually. Knowing that your whole life is tied to a man and you don't have any source of independence, and your possible one chance to actually get out of the situation turned out to be like a missed opportunity, or let's say, a shot in the dark. It's just, it's just heartbreaking for me, because up until today, there are still women of Masha's position and condition. And then, of course, if there are Mashas around, there are still Ivans around. So yeah, not all marriages are happy, fun, rainbow, and all that, And Anton Chekov has captured that in his short story. Yep, that's it for this first impression. Yeah, my first impression that is around half an hour. If I don't stop myself from speaking. So yeah, thank you for, listening, watching, skipping it. I don't know. But yeah, thanks.